Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered here today to witness the well-deserved retirement of Captain Large Hat, sailor of the sea, legendary purveyor of red honey. He will be remembered most for purchasing a jar of honey and then scooting 2 inches out of port, waiting for a day, and then doing it again 20 times in a row. What a beautiful man. Friends and colleagues, today in the Rogues Gallery, we start at the end. They say all life begins with death. Actually, I don't think they do. I think that doesn't make any sense. Never mind. What I'm saying is, when you die in Sunless Sea, ordinarily, you are given the choice to take one boon from your deceased captain. For instance, if I was playing normally, I could take 50% of one of Captain Large Hat's stats, which sometimes comes with his weapon, or some of his money, or even the old map that he used. However, since Captain Large Hat is retiring with the sun, he gets to pick 2 of those options. And because he made a will at some point in his life, the next character also gets his mansion, which you can decorate with family heirlooms that you can then sell in the next game for extra money. So I'll be starting off this new game flush with cash money. When you begin a new game of Sunless Sea, you can choose a past, or you can decide to do it later. But for now, we're going to pick a past, which will help give us a goal and give us starting stats. So I am going to pick a veteran of the campaign of 68, which will give me a bonus to my iron skill, and then you choose an ambition. And I am going to choose Your Father's Bones, which is the closest thing to a main campaign in the game. And now I will be known as my lord, the honorable son of Captain Large Hat, Ultimate Hemingway, who needs a suitably excellent beard. Good enough. And as I selected, I am given a task to find my father's bones. Where you start depends on your background. For example, the campaigner has to start by gathering enough support with the Admiralty to get a clue. And we'll get on how to do that in just a second. But for now, Fallen London. This is our hub. Here we can do a bunch of different things. We can go to our lodgings, we can pick up a passenger, we can visit London itself. There's nothing really for us to do here. We could also shop, or we could look at advice. You always start the game with a book of advice for captains. You should always sell that immediately. It's garbage. I mean, you should read it, but probably sell it. Second, let's take a look at the shops here. There are several shops. Most of them sell naval equipment, such as ships, weapons, or engines. This place sells 2 of the commodities we will always need. Fuel, which you're going to pick up a bunch of, and supplies, which we will also need. Now, I have a lot of money because I started with my previous character's funds, or at least half of them. And I could upgrade my ship or my engines, but I think for now, I just want to show off what a normal voyage looks like. So let's check out this passenger here. He wants to go to the Cumean Canal, which is fortunate because the Cumean Canal is always in the same place. So I think all our business here is done. Let's take a trip. So Sunless Sea is a roguelite in that the map is randomly generated for the most part. Some locations always appear in the same place, and those are generally the ones at the edge of the map. But if we take a look at said map, all this space in between islands will be randomly generated. They'll always be the same islands, but they'll be in different places. So right now we're gonna take a little bit of a cruise to the south. We're in our starting boat. I do have a better gun because I got that from my inheritance, but my engine and the boat itself are baseline. So your first boat can hold 10 crew members, 40 items of cargo, and it's very slow. Sunless Sea is, in general, kind of a slow game. Most of the time you'll have your brain turned off and you can just do other things in the background while you sail around. But then some of the time, things are actually interesting and you need to pay close attention to what you're doing. It occupies sort of a weird space, and even though it's a good game, I feel like that's kind of one of its biggest flaws. So when you dock at port, you have a list of things you can do. Most of them require a free day, which I will explain in just a moment. But what we want to do really is compile a port report. We can do that by talking to fishermen. Port reports are important because we can turn them in at Fallen London for a bit of money and a bit of fuel. Let's see what else we can do here. We can visit the hilltop above town. This is a challenge. There are 5 stats in this game. They mostly start at 25, although depending on your character, you get a boost. They are iron, which does damage and is related to combat challenges. Mirrors, which is related to detection challenges. Veils, which is stealth. Pages, which is occult lore and helps you gain XP faster. It's also the hardest stat to raise. And Hearts, which helps protect you from terror and defend. So this is a Pages challenge. Got a pretty good chance of it. Let's give it a shot. So we succeeded, but success is not always good. We've gotten a bit more terror. And some fragments, which is experience. And I think that's all we can really do here. We could pick up a new crew member, basically a mascot, but he costs 3 supplies, and I want to keep my supplies for now. So let's leave. One thing I should note, now that like 10 minutes have passed, is that Sunless Sea is a very text-heavy game, and this is probably not the best way to experience it if you have not played it before. There is a screenshot Let's Play on Something Awful. It was mentioned in the thread, and I will link it in the description of this video and in the thread itself. But the cursory glance I've given it looks pretty good, and it also follows one of the more interesting paths in the game. If you're interested in the game but don't actually want to play it, you should probably check that out after you watch this video, because I need the CPM. I need that YouTube money. I gotta pay for my LP yacht. Anyway, we're going to head a bit further south, and I'll talk a little bit more about the mechanics. As you've probably noticed, We have a fuel gauge up here. When you go, you burn fuel. Fuel burns pretty fast for the most part, unlike supplies, which increase much more slowly. It should be noted if you have a bigger crew, you will spend more supplies over a faster time, but generally it's fuel you're going to be worrying about, and supplies slightly less so. Last is our terror meter, which is basically our sanity meter. The undersea is a scary place, and a lot of bad things can happen. It gradually goes up as you sail through the sea, and if it reaches 100, you die. If it even gets pretty high, some bad stuff starts to happen. You might find that out a bit later. But this is the Cumean Canal. It is the sole path up to the surface. Fallen London, you see, as you might have noticed, is underground. We sail the undersea. We could sail the above sea, but it costs quite a bit of supplies and a lot of fuel to get up there. Although once you do get up there, it tends to lower your terror exponentially, and you can make quite a bit of money. So let's drop this gentleman off. And he comes back. We can also listen to surface gossip, and we can get a sort of currency called a vision of the surface. We can trade these in for various things. Money / echoes is not the only currency in Sunless Sea, and it's arguably not even the most important. You're going to be collecting a lot of weird stuff that you can trade in for a lot of other weird stuff. I also want this port report, so let's grab that. It's worth almost nothing, but we got it. That done, we've made a bit of progress on the map. Let's head east a bit, see if we can find anything else before we return to London. As I mentioned, the game is very slow. If you play it right, you will not die. It took me about 5 turns before I realized exactly how to play, and then I was able to live basically forever. And a lot of the time is spent just watching your ship slowly crawl across the screen. Better engine will fix that, but in the beginning, things are kinda, well, not super exciting. Sunless Sea is interesting because it's a game about exploration, but there's a lot of times that you have to do mercantile stuff and just sort of grind your money so you can get more stuff, better stuff, and explore more. It's very slow-paced, and like I said, you can turn your brain off for half of it. But then the actual story and lore is really interesting. So we found Demu Island, which is a fungine station. I don't know what that is. I assume something to do with fungus? Either way, this is where our passenger wanted to go, so we can do his little quest. And it looks like he wants to go to, I think, Gator's Forest. We also have tea, which will lower our terror. So this guy mentions Irem. I don't know if we're going to see Irem, but that is far away. He also tells us about a nice restaurant that we might go to if we're ever in town. So let's grab a port report. Looks like we have enough stuff to get back to London. So let's make a little circle. Most of this game is about circles. Once you understand the trading routes and what sells for what and where you can make a profit, basically you're going to spend a lot of time sailing circles around the sea. This guy over here is a western angler crab. Do not fuck with him. At least not yet. In fact, don't fuck with any animals in Sunless Sea. Until you've got a nice ship and a really good cannon, kill other ships. Do not try to kill creatures, because they will fuck you up every time. If we can find a pirate ship, though, I can show off a bit of combat. Another mechanic that I just did but didn't talk about is the light. You can turn off the light, it makes you a bit more stealthy, makes you harder to spot, but your terror goes up faster. We also have a Z-bat. We press Z, the bat goes out, and it will tell us if there are any islands nearby. Like this thing. We can mark them on our map. One thing you can do, though, if an enemy has like less than 20 health, go ahead and kill it. For instance, this crab is our dinner now. Delicious crab. And let's take a stop at Station 3. Station 3 is very hard to get into. It's a very secretive place where they do very secretive things. We can look at it from a distance, but we can't learn much about it. Interestingly enough, it is the only place you can get a port report for only once. We can try the gate, but we need a certain delivery to get in, and that delivery is very hard to find. There are also no shops here, so we're gonna bail. Let's take another look at our map. It's a nice little circle. We've carved away a small chunk of the map, so let's head back to London. Plus, we also got 3 port reports, which is what we need to give to the Admiral to find out about our father. But, fuck that. This guy, right here, actually, he's not a pirate, and he has a lot of health. Never mind. He's cool. There are some targets on the sea that are... Well, most of the ships you encounter will be pirates, but some are just cruisers, actual legitimate traders, and you can kill them, and they'll give you stuff, but your crew usually doesn't like it, causes more terror, and it's normally not worth the trouble. But hey, we found one more place before we go back. Abbey Rock. It is a covenant. The Sisterhood lives here. They do a bunch of weird stuff, mostly relating to fish. If we had some news, we could talk to them. We can spy on them, though. They also happen to be warrior nuns. So you may have noticed, as we discover things down here in our log, we get fragments. Fragments are experience. Once we get enough, we get a secret, which we can spend to raise some of our stats, or in some cases, bargain for other things. Of course, to raise our stats, we actually have to have crewmen to teach us. And right now, we only really have one, the Shady Cook. Once we get back to London, we can have a chat with him. There's also this icon at the bottom, this little light. Once you spend enough time at sea, you will get something called an extra day. So whenever you go into port, you can spend your extra day on doing any number of things. There's a lot of... Actually, I think every island has at least one unique thing you can spend your day on. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. Usually they relate to a challenge, but not all the time. But now that we're back in London for the first time, we get to meet this amazing gentleman, the Blind Bruiser. He will always show up the first time you come back to port. He will always give you a gift, and you should always accept that gift. It's mostly fuel and supplies. You do get a bit of suspicion, but suspicion does almost nothing. And this time his service is free. So nothing wrong with taking it. Now about that extra day I have, I can use it to carouse. Which will lower your terror and give you some recent news. I should also probably get some crew, because I'm looking a little short. And you can usually, every time you go back into port in London, recruit a new person. And for the first couple of times, there'll be special officers. And I think I want the navigator. They usually cost 100 to 200 echoes. This guy's 50. Let's grab him. And we'll go ahead, make him our first officer. And he will boost our mirrors and our veils. And since I said I was going to talk to the cook, let's see what he has to say. He wants to go to the Sea of Lilies. So every crew member has a quest you can do. Usually they have pretty nice rewards. Let's have dinner with this guy. And you usually have to speak with them multiple times to advance their story to the point where you can actually know where to go and what to do. But enough about that. Ultimate Hemingway is not satisfied with the speed or the girth of this ship. So we're going to go ahead and do what all good sons do. We're going to sell all of our family heirlooms, which will give us about 1,000 a pop, and Captain Large Hat had only 2, sadly. We're also going to sell our mansion for quite a bit more money. And now that we're stinking rich again, Dreadnought is still a bit out of our pay range. This guy, though, is not bad. And we will call him the Vinny D. So your starter ship is not equipped with a forward or an aft slot. However, this ship has slots for everything. I also made kind of a mistake, and that I over budgeted. But we still have enough money to buy a decent engine. And that's what's really important. And now that our good friend Ultimate Hemingway has squandered his family's fortune, Let's see if we can make a bit back by talking to the Admiralry and submitting support reports. So each one of these will net me a bit of money and a bit of fuel and favors from the Admiralry. And once we turn in 4 of them, we can visit the Admiral himself. And ask about what happened to our father. And he tells us King Eater's castle is in the far southeast of the map. It's a long way to go, especially on short crew, as now we have slots for 25 crew. So the first thing we're going to do is hire on a few more men. And sell our elegant townhouse, because we really need some money here. Ultimate Hemingway has not made good decisions. Alright, that's a decent crew. We're going to need a lot of food for them. And a lot of fuel. Normally, I would be considering what I could take to trade, but we have nowhere we can really trade with yet. We do have a hold of 70, which is pretty good. So that done, I think we can set sail to find our father's bones. You notice almost immediately that we're going to go quite a bit faster. And I think we'll just head straight east for a little while, see what we can find. We can also test out our new gun, since, you know, this guy's here. He's also pretty easy to kill. It's actually not that good of a gun. The deck guns are really not that strong. It's the forward guns that do most of the damage. Aft guns as well, although it's actually hard to use an aft gun. Anyway, that dude's gone. So we could either eat it, or we could just let it disperse, which will give us a Z story. Another thing we can use either to trade in for money or to trade in for other favors. I would like to say that, as I mentioned, this game is very interesting. It's very Lovecraftian-esque. The writing is great. The exploration parts are great. It's just the parts in between them, the mercantile parts, that I don't like as much. I still think it's a really good game, especially after Overfall. If you can pick it up on sale, unless you really don't like to read, I think it's probably pretty good. So these are the Shepherd Isles. Not much goes on here. We can learn a Z story. Make a port report. And then go kill some fucking pirates. Look at this dude. He has no idea what's coming. So when I said you should always try to kill other ships, I said that because it's super easy. especially if you have a decent engine, you can kind of just chill out behind them and they really don't know how to handle that. It's the Dark Souls PvP of naval combat. You just kind of hug the butt, shoot a few times. Let's see what we got. Honey. I don't know if we can use that, but we'll see. It's so weird. After playing my last save file for like a week, seeing everything in different positions, it's just throwing me off. I had a really good trade route set up. I have no idea if it's going to be the same way this time. Although I suppose it doesn't really matter, because I am not going to play this game that long. There's a plenty good Let's Play already. I'm just here to sail. So Gator's Morn is Den of Thieves. It's Mos Eisley. It's kind of a dangerous place to do challenges in. To even get a port report is a challenge for Vales. I'm gonna give it a shot, but it's probably not gonna work. And we lost a crew member and got some terror. So we could explore around, but that is also not a great idea. Oh, we can hear about the pirate poet. The pirate poet is a clayman. Claymen are basically golems, and also a poet. And we'll probably run into her at some point. But for now, let's sell our prisoners honey and continue on. Nothing I really want to do here. Let's check our map. We're about halfway across the sea, almost. Might be time to start turning south soon. So we've entered the Sea of Voices. That is close to Polythreme, which is one of the best places to make money in the game. Also looks like there's something north of us. Godfall, which is a giant mummy. I actually forget what happens here. But, you know, let's stop in and say hi. Maybe we can find out. We can get a port report. But that's about all we could do. If we had a hunting trophy or some mushroom wine, we could do more stuff, but I didn't buy mushroom wine in London because I'm broke as fuck. This guy's a bit of a tougher pirate, but like I said, still super easy to kill. So I haven't explained this mechanic yet. My weapon down here I can fire when it's not fully charged, but if I do that, there's a chance I'll miss. You have to wait till it's glowing all the way around. And that happens faster when the enemy is inside of your light. Also, I have 450 hull. What the fuck am I scared of? I can just go face to face with this guy. It doesn't matter. Classic naval combat right here. Ah, here she is. Like I said, the pirate poet. We'd see her eventually. She is a good find, because you can get her bounty, which is 400 echoes. And because you're usually not starting off with 9,000 like I did, 400 at the time makes you seem like a real baller. Let's take a turn south. I was hoping we'd find polythreme, but looks like I missed it somewhere in the fog. Oh, no, we're right on track. So polythreme is populated by claymen. As I noted, essentially golems. They don't have a lot of personality to them. Mostly they want you to take them somewhere or buy their stuff. You also have to have a certain item to see their king, I believe, and I don't think I have it. Let's stop in and get a port report. Yeah, sadly we cannot get an audience with the King of the 100 Hearts. We can, however, make a delivery. They want us to take claymen to London. You can only do this once per trip, so you can only fit 6 claymen in your hold at a time. But they're worth about 120 echoes, so it's not bad to just stop here every time. So as we travel further east and south, things get a bit more dangerous. We're going to start running into more scary enemies, things that'll kill me very easily, especially with the puny gun I've got now. Thankfully, I've still got a lot of fuel and not too bad on supplies. Although as you get further and further from London, it gets harder and harder to find places that will actually sell you fuel or supplies. Generally, in the early game, you want to stick as close to London as you can, and then in the later game, you can finally start branching out. We're going east. We're not even going to Khan Shadow. I don't care about it. All I care about is the east. Swallowing Isles is... I think that's the mangrove colony? Yeah, it is. Alright, so this place is actually great. If we can find the dock. Melting Isles is a vast wilderness filled with scholars. It is also filled with supplies. It's a really great place to come if you're running low on supplies and you're in the middle of a trip. You can generally find like 6 or so supplies and refill your hunger gauge while you're here. We can also recruit a new officer, Maybe's daughter, for free, because I ain't got no money. And she is a first officer, I think. Actually, no, she's an engineer. We can also pick up a passenger. They usually want to go to either Gator's Morn or the Cecil Island, and they'll give you 100 echoes a pop. So it's not a bad idea to pick them up if you're going on a round trip. You can gather supplies, only 3 this time. And take a port report, which will also cure all our hunger and give us supplies. This place is pretty great. If we had some Foxfire candles, we could do the unique event here, which is wandering around in a forest. Sadly, we do not. I wonder if I could take that guy. The answer is yes, but I don't want to waste the fuel going to him. We should be getting close to our final destination, King Eater's Castle. King Eater's Castle is one of the few places that is always around the same area. This is not it. This is the Sea of Statues. There's actually no ports here. Also, this is a glorious dreadnought. And I genuinely don't know if I can take it. I think it has an aft cannon, which are rare on enemy ships, but they do exist and they're kind of nasty. But you know what? Fuck it, we're gonna fight. I actually never got around to killing one of these in my regular playthrough, so let's see what you got. And I was wrong, he does not have an aft weapon, which means that he is, like all other enemies, easy to kill. We are, however, burning through more fuel than I'd like in this glorious dance. One thing to note is, once you go past, I believe, half hull on any ship, when the enemy deals damage to you, they start dealing damage to your crew. And you start losing crew, which can be a bummer. He's also shooting flares, which technically should make me easier to see and hit, but he can't actually hit me because I'm always behind him. This dreadnought is not as glorious as I was promised. Should take about 2 more. Let's try firing early. That worked that time. And that time. That is disappointing. Got a memory of a distant shore, which is actually a pretty common item. Not worth killing that guy for at all. We did, however, find King Eater's castle. It's an old abandoned castle at the edge of the sea, and you can do some very cool things here. First, let's take a look at our father's bones, or at least try to find them. And we learned that we might find something at the Fathom King's Hold, which is another destination. I doubt we'll find it, though. More importantly, look at all this stuff we could do. We could lose our mind. We could eat our crew. Could offer all of our stories. Or we could make a port report, which I suppose we could do. So unfortunately, all these fun options are locked behind a certain amount of terror. I'd have to have over 30 terror to do this one, and I need more iron to do this one. I can, however, just for fun, offer up a sea story and see where it takes us. Oh man, that's a bummer. So we got taken back to London. Truth is, I was so low on fuel and food, I probably would have died if we just died out there. But I actually wanted to fail, because when you fail, you occasionally get kicked to some pretty nice places. So we have nothing to hide from the revenue men. Got some new stuff going on. Since we're here, I suppose we'll give our port reports to the... Actually, let's deliver Clayman. Get some money for that. Talk to the Admiral. Submit all our port reports. We can also ask if they need something specific, which will give us a mission to go to a specific port and get strategic information. He wants from the Chelenate, which is very far east. What else can we do over here? Let's buy a lot of fuel and a lot of food. And since we have a bit more money, let's buy some mushroom wine. Mushroom wine is a hot seller. There are a lot of places that buy it, and you can make a small markup. Generally in this game, unless you're trading in the big name items like Sunlight or Red Honey, both of which are very illegal and very lucrative, you're only going to be making a markup of 3 to 5 echoes between different ports when you go sailing. But this video is getting pretty long, and I want to take one last journey across the sea with you. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, because there is something that I want to see. Ultimate Hemingway cannot rest until he has seen the edge of the world. And here we are again, heading toward the east. We've just passed Godfall. We may turn north shortly. There is something I want to see. There's an eel here, which we'll just scoot by. Turning off the light does increase terror, but terror is actually fairly easy to manage for the most part. You can do a lot to mitigate it back in London, carousing and sleeping at your house. And if it gets really bad, you can always go to the surface, and that'll cure you pretty quick. Draw close. Not as fast as I'd like, but we can speed up. Speeding up does have a chance of making your engines explode though, which is not cool. Better things could happen, to be honest. Let's take a little detour. There's something interesting up here. The only place in the Sunless Sea that is in fact not sunless. Here is Aestival. This is an interesting place because it will allow you to basically find a new objective to win the game. Once you find this island, you'll be able to get the ambition to colonize an island. And that is a separate way to win the game that is not originally available when you start. However, to found this colony, you need to find an artifact that can protect against sunlight. Because underground people do not do well in the sun. For instance, usually when you go gather supplies, you lose a crew member because they decide to just stay and waste away in the sun. It's very pretty. There's also a condition in the game called sun blindness. Oh no, it's called yearning burning. And you can collect sunlight with a special mirror box and sell it at the market. But the more you do it, the more you become addicted to sunlight, until eventually you die. Speaking of dying, we have reached the edge of the map. Beyond here lies madness. Also, there's a giant fish here. He does not care about madness. All he cares about is murder. But you know what? Ultimate Hemingway has no fear. And he will face the unknown, unlike his cowardly father. And this is it. The end of the world. Maybe there are things after this. But why would it matter? How could you compare them to the light below?